New Era has big ideas. That's truly self-serving. But when you consider the value of tools like Image Focus, the Control Editor, and ICE Direct, maybe there's justification there because they provide higher levels of ZOS integrity. Hi, I'm Paul from New Era Software, and today we're going to talk about List-Directed IPL, or LDIPL. Now, this is a topic that I discuss frequently, so there's lots of YouTube videos out there that you can reach by clicking on the blue link on this page. But today, what we're going to do is focus on a share nibble that drills down into the best practices for establishing responsibility and accountability as it relates to List-Directed IPL. So let's get started. By way of review, what this whole process is essentially all about is by hardening the ZOS supply chain. Now, IBM has done a really good job of hardening its own supply chain up to the point where system resources like the Nucleus and LPA and IPL text reach your environment, let's call it a clean room. And in that environment, which should be very limited with access to only a few trusted employees, we make modifications and additions and validate those changes, hopefully using Image Focus and the authorized code scanner, and then sign them and then move them on for actual implementation on text that could be around the world. Now, up until this point, there hasn't been any real way to secure this internal portion of the supply chain. But now, with the introduction of List-Directed IPL in ZOS 3.1, we now have the ability to be able to fingerprint those components and establish a relationship between ourselves, the creator of those components, such that there can be clear responsibility and accountability for their creation and use. Now, it's pretty clear that this is going to take some work. And in order to make it work, you're going to have to create an infrastructure that will ultimately result in a set of signing resources. Now, those resources will include keychains, certificates, and RACF profiles in the facility class and the R data log class. And those structures, if you would, are going to be used by tools that will actually perform the signing. In some cases, those tools are things like IEW sign, or in the case of IPL text, ICK DSF. But no matter which one it is, they both follow essentially the same path to a callable service called rpigm sign var. And it in turn makes a call to a facility class profile to determine whether or not the signer that's named in the JCL that's used for signing these resources actually has access to those signing structures. Now, there are several different, as you would expect, methods that can be used for actually describing that profile, and you see them here on the screen. The first component of the profile is a standard, cannot be violated string of text, IRR program v2 signing, and then options. One option is to define a user group ID, and in addition, define a user ID. And what that's saying is that in order for that user ID to qualify as a user of these resources, it not only has to be known to RACF, but it also has to be a member of the group that's defined on that node. A second method would just be to define a group ID and to permit or connect individual users to that specific group, so that if they attempted assigning, what these programs would do is attempt to validate that that user is in fact a connected member of that specific group. Now, the first one is a valid option. But it seems to me to be a bit too restrictive, if you would, somewhat overly complicated. The second one is a bit too general. So this is sort of like, this bed's too hard, this bed's too soft. We got to find the one that's the Goldilocks bed, if you would. And that, to me, is the third one, where the profile itself is defined to a specific user ID. Now, this is highly recommended because what it allows to happen is that there now becomes specific identification between the actual signing process and individual users so that there can be traceability of who is responsible for these resources and who should be held accountable for them. The fourth one was just an overall catch-all general profile, IRR program V2 signing, is just way too general. You can establish a profile of that nature. You can permit individuals to use it and follow on with additional profiles in the RDataLib class and permit them within there as well. But it's just far too general. You won't be able to really trace specifically any of those individuals to the actual signing, and therefore holding them responsible and accountable for their work will become difficult, if not impossible, to do. So the takeaway point here is that there are a number of different formats that can be used for describing a facility class profile that will be used to determine whether or not a user named on the JCL of IEW sign or ICK BSF actually has the authority to use the signing structures, key rings, certificates, etc. The best way to do it, our highly recommended way, is the third one that you see here, where each individual user has their own specific profile, naming their own specific key ring with their own specific permissions to the RDataLib class that is protecting. Well, that's it for today. If you want to take some next steps, send an email to either Sammy or Andrew, and they will arrange for some additional training in this area, and we can discuss the next big ideas that New Era Software has. Thank you for attending this nibble. Have a great day. Bye-bye.